back to another episode of CRE The Unspoken Truth, joined here with my dad, Craig Coppola, and our CEO of CRE OneSource. I'm Charlie. And our topic today is the impact of remote work on office space. And so let's start with this. When did remote work start coming into the conversation with you guys? I would imagine it was a little bit before COVID. Is that true?
Fair. Yeah, to last 20 years.
Yeah.
People have been working remote. It just never took off. It never had any legs to it for a lot of reasons, and the same reasons it's going to hold back the adoption going forward as well.
What are those reasons?
Well, one of the reasons is people want to get promoted. And to get promoted, you have to develop, it's not just technical skills. It's going to be relationships. It's going to be the fact of culture you add to the culture of the company. It's going to be, KPIs that deal with, are you coaching other people up? And remote workers, I mean, the stats are now coming out. The upward mobility of remote workers is fairly low. Certainly there's a few areas where it's not, but for most people, the upside is limited, and people are actually making decisions that they're going to limit their upside by not going into the office. And I think it's a short-sighted decision for me personally. I wouldn't encourage any of my kids to do that.
So you started talking about it with tenants 20 years ago. In the late, I'm younger. I've only been working now, 10 years or a little less than 10. Was it becoming bigger in the late 2010s before COVID? Like, was it becoming a bigger part of the conversation?
No, I think it was always designed that way. There was always 5 to 10% of a space where we'd go, hey, we've got some people that are going to come in every now and then. It was never, and so we talk about this segment, remote and flex. We should probably retitle this to say there's really two things going on. There's remote workers who have worked for Google and they've moved to Idaho and they're not moving back. So those folks we're talking about, those are making a decision that lifestyle is more important to them. And I think, John, my son-in-law, John, your sister's brother works for Google, and he moved to Nashville when he was living in California. He's a remote worker, and he might move to Europe. And so that decision is for those folks trying to do that. The other, which is really the one that we're dealing with today, on a very regular basis, is what are my flex hours? And most people are not wanting to come into the office 5 days a week. And so there's a big negotiation going on. And so we can get the remote worker out of the way and say, I think there's going to be somewhere around 20% of the people that can do remote work, and the rest just aren't simply going to aren't going to be able to do it. And if they do it somehow, some way, I think technology is going to replace them over the next 10 years. And so I would be very cautious if I was a remote worker in looking at what my skill sets are and how AI and technology could replace me.
Yeah. Well, and then the flex seems to make sense of, hey, heads down time, like our engineers, our software engineers, they, our tech lead comes into the office, and he's trying to write code. He's got the big headphones on. He has earplugs underneath. And he's like, I don't want to talk to anyone. And it's still hard for him to focus. So he's like, I need to be remote when I'm writing code. I'll come in to meet. I'll come in to do team events, but a majority of his job is remote. Other people, right? My job, a lot of our salespeople, vast majority is with people, meetings, team, sales, customers, whatever it is. And so, but there is still some heads down component where it might make sense to be, remote, or you could do it remote at that point.
I think humans have won because we do better as a team. Mm-hmm. Individually, me going up against a lion, I'm going to lose. If I have 10 of my people with spears, I can win. Mm-hmm. The same thing's happening now, where people are saying, I can do this on Zoom. Like our business, how we've built our business, could not have existed before COVID.
Yeah.
Zoom wasn't there, it wasn't accepted. We can now meet people, we can close people, we can onboard them all via Zoom. So the way the business, we started it at the right time for what we're doing. But for people, and if we talk about the people first, then we can talk about the other side. For the people actually working, I think you want to be in the office. I think you want culture. You want to be in an environment that you want to go to. You want to learn from it. You want to get some synergistic. We know ourselves that we get better productivity on the sales and operations side because we're all in the office together. And I know 100% of the fact at Lee and Associates, we were shut down from COVID for about 30 minutes. We the COVID hit, everybody went home, and we said, you can come in if you want. Everybody came in through the entire COVID, not because we were jerks and we didn't want people to get sick. It was like, we got work to do and we do a better job of it because we're in the information business and we're all together. Yeah. And so from our standpoint as brokers, I think we need to be around other people. One of the reasons I never started my own company, I'm at Lee and Associates, is because I do value the other people. We have lots of sole practitioners in our that we are customers. But for me, in trying to lease office space, I get value out of 25 other guys sharing information.
Yeah. Well, I can say from our perspective with OneSource, right? Our original team, we had engineers, we had a product leader in different states. I mean, we had a couple people in Phoenix, lived far away, kind of remote, mostly remote. Then we had engineers in Seattle and Utah and a product leader in Austin. And that was when we built the team, we were like, let's go find the best of the best. And what happened was we had great people, but it was really, really, really hard to communicate because you had to do everything intentionally. There was no spur of the moment. Oh, did you see that? It was all scheduled Zooms, phone calls, or messages. It was really hard to put our heads together and brainstorm on a specific problem. Again, you could schedule it, but it wasn't as natural. It wasn't as spur of the moment, and you were restricted. You were completely restricted by the hours and how you could do that. So when we kind of revamped this team, we've been all in on being in person, and the culture's been super strong. The work ethic has been stronger. I believe we're solving problems faster. Yeah, the results are there. And so I would never start another company without being in person, just given the experiences we've had and the challenges we had, originally.
Yeah. So I think then you go, okay, let's take the remote side out, and now we're looking at the flex hours.
Yeah.
Is there a case to be made for somebody working home 1 day a week? And I think the case is fairly strong that you can make the case 1 day a week. Chelsea, my assistant, works from home 2 to 3 days a week. And it works fine. It works fine because one, she worked for me for 10 years or 11 years or 12 years before we had COVID. And so we knew the work habits, we knew the work ethic, those kinds of things. It's really hard when you're new on the team to kind of earn your way on the team when you're working remote more than 2 days a week. So I think there's a demarcation that I like to say right now, if my current thinking is at least 3 days a week, preferably 4. And if you're a startup and you're new to the business, you should be in the office 5 days a week. It's also a difference between a professional and amateur. You're running a lot of races now. It is so hard to train by yourself. It's so hard to do mile repeats by yourself. You're trying to break 3 hours in the next month or so. It's like, that's very difficult to do. I always had Mike Malone or somebody who was running with me, even though I was a little bit faster than him, just knowing that he was out, we named it the House of Pain, right? Even knowing that we were going to go into the House of Pain together made me a better runner, and it makes me a better boss if we're there.
Yeah. Well, I know for a fact my first job out of college, I probably learned more from just overhearing conversations than I did, anything else from the job. And I know, early in your career, being around, I can say from our team's perspective, Sam and Brock get out of college, they're sitting right next to you, right behind you. I know they got a lot of value out of just listening to you.
My conversations.
Totally unrelated conversations, but it was showing them how to work, how to communicate, what what people do all day. So it was just there's a lot of value, especially early in your career, to just watching and listening, I
Yeah,
think.
we one of our non-negotiables at Capola Cheney's is white belts sit next to black belts, and we learn on an open environment basis. We don't have any offices. We all sit open, as you know.
Yep.
Same thing's happening at OneSource. This is my home office, which is where we first 2 years we were in OneSource.
Mhm.
It was here in this office that we started it, and this is where everybody. In fact, they're kind of nostalgic about it, right?
Yeah.
Remember the good old days we were in your office? We talked about all these
We're
things.
all on top of each other.
Yeah, now we have this big office space and we have more people in it, and we're still trying to have that same kind of collaborative, open environment. And I challenge a lot of my clients to like, hey, are we thinking about the office space 5 years from today? What does it look like? Who are you trying to hire and build and keep? And that's what we're trying to build to. And if you're trying to build a young workforce into something that's a powerful workforce, then you're going to need a lot of collaborative environment. And what's been happening on the design side of this, they've been designing collaborative spaces, but everybody still has their little secret little spot. And it's like, that's not necessarily collaborative. So now you're hoping everybody, they like collides and they share. And it's like, but then they have a spot that they can go back to. In my team, there's nowhere to hide. There's
Yeah.
nowhere to hide at OneSource, right? We have two teams full on right now, and it's like you could just turn around and you know exactly what everybody's doing right then. And you and I are front and center. It's like we are our backs are to them, so they can literally see what's on our screens 7 hours, 8 hours a day, and they can understand our conversations. And that's the culture we're trying to build.
Yeah. So I wanted to, you kind of took the conversation this way, and I wanted to go, what are a couple points of conversations you're having with tenants today? And then what are a couple points you're having with building owners, landlords on office space?
Well, I think let's start with the owners first. The conversation with owners is, and we mentioned this on another unspoken truth, is Class A space is winning right now. You have to have amenitized, highly amenitized, very built out, very nice space. That if you don't have it, then you're not going to win in the space right now. So we're spending time, and the space is primarily open. We're still seeing open space. People do want that with some office, some conferencing and a little bit of officing. So from the owner standpoint, they have to build out spec space. They have to make it cool. They have to have really cool amenities in the building. And so there's a whole package of that. And where we are in OneSource, they're literally adding $25 million worth of crazy yoga and conference rooms, speakeasy, and a podcast room. We could do our podcast at the end of the year from here. From the standpoint of us having conversations with our users as we tour them, is we are spending a lot of time on who are you getting, who are your last three hires, who are your next three hires, where do they look like, where are they coming from, what are their skill sets, what do they want from you, and how can you design that so that it happens in your space. For instance, I'll give you an example. One of our clients is a regional law firm, Finnemore, and when we were redoing their office space here, I remember touring and they were not having a very good turnout of people coming in. So they were bringing donuts in on Wednesday, and that didn't move the needle. And I remember we walked by this office, and there was this young professional attorney at a sit stand as he was standing up. And I saw his eyes light up when we walked by, thinking, oh, someone's coming by to kind of talk to me and coach me and kind of have an interaction. And it was like six of us, and we walked by, and I could just see him going like, I need more of that. We weren't the right answer for him. So I think a lot of these firms are trying to figure this out. How do we get productivity but still grow our people? It's not an easy decision. It's very difficult to do, and brokers can help because we're seeing a lot of it.
I would imagine that's becoming a bigger responsibility for a HR leader, is like not only have say in what the space looks like, but also making sure we're using the space as it's intended. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I don't think HR has gotten there yet. They are in some of the tech companies, but
Yeah.
there's a HR is like, give me everything and I might be able to hire some people. operations or P and whoever has the P&L is saying, oh, I'm going to give you as much as I can, but I still have to have work and productivity. And, and the fact that you have a yoga room in here and people are meditating 2 hours a day of their 8 hours, that's not helping me.
Mhm.
And so there's going to be there's a collision happening right now with companies. How do we meet our P&L while we grow our team and give them what they need, but not necessarily so they're unproductive.
Yeah.
And I think at some points, there are some points where it goes over the board. Now, you will give you an example in the building. We were just talking about our building. They're putting a bar in there, a speakeasy, as you said. I had a client tell me, I don't want to go to a bar and have my people see me having a drink with a buddy. That's not, I'm their boss. And so this idea of I'm going to go down there and have a pop after work with our team may not be such a good thing. It's supposed to activate, you're supposed to get more collaborative, and in some ways I'm thinking it might backfire. So we'll see.
I had someone say in the elevator to me, like, oh, we'll all be doing our workouts next to each other, which is like they were joking because it's like they weren't really wanting to do that. And it's like, yeah, you're going to go do yoga next to all your coworkers. Sometimes people want that. I would say a lot of time they don't.
Well, I'll tell you what happens. What's really interesting is because landlords are building out workout spaces for some 30 years.
Mhm. Yeah.
They sell, they just don't get used.
Yeah. Yeah.
People come in and go, oh, my team's going to love this. And then you go in there 5 years later, there's going to be the core group of 20 people that use it. And nobody else, like, I know it's sitting down there. I know I could just join it. And yeah.
What is any other crazy amenities you've heard lately?
Speakeasy.
It's up there.
I think there's meditation rooms happening now, and
Yeah.
it's what's crazy. Here's the unspoken truth: is all of these amenities are added to the load factor,
Mhm.
which means if you're in 1,000 feet, in the old days you used to have a 10% load factor, so you'd pay rent on 1,100 feet. Today the load factor is, like in our building, is going to be 30%. So if you're in 1,000 feet, you're going to be paying on 11 or 1,300 square feet, which is 200 feet more, and they raise the prices. So it's on $50 rents, 200 feet more is $10,000 a year. It's like, okay, you're paying for it whether you use it or not. And that is an unspoken truth. Is like, yes, you can be sold this, but your operating expenses are going way up.
Yep.
Your load factor is going way up, and if you're not a tenant that needs this, don't come in here to lease it.
Yeah.
So we spend a lot of time kind of going through the numbers to make sure they know what they're getting.
Do you think Google was one of the first to like start that trend with their big campus? And I remember there's like a movie, The Intern or The Internship, with Vince Vaughn, Owen Wilson, and they show the campus and they're sleeping and they're working out. And I think the idea is like you're on campus except to sleep, or like you could spend your whole day there. And maybe there's some work benefits if you are just around your coworkers or your office all day.
Well, I think that the original contents was these folks were working a bunch of hours. I mean, they were working 100 hours a week. So you provided things to not make sure that they could stay 100 hours a week.
Still exercise and eat and all that. Yeah.
The new amenities is not for people to stay there and work more. It's for them to not work more.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're providing amenities. Yeah, there's conference rooms and yeah, there's a podcast room, but if you're a TikToker and you're working and you go down and do your podcast at your lunch, I mean, that's not working towards the mission of the company. And so it's really changed. And so if you look at Silicon Valley and what they were doing, we toured 15 years ago. McCarthy Cook had a building, and it was Dropbox's headquarters, corporate headquarters. And the original founders of Dropbox were musicians. And in the middle of their corporate headquarters, right in the middle, they had built a soundproof studio for music. So in the middle of the day, people would go in there and they'd bang on the drums, and you couldn't hear it on the outside, but that was their thing because they were musicians. And they were serving meals 3 days, 3 times a day. And so it was part of the culture to work 100 hours a week. And I totally get that. I totally get it. If you're on a skunk work mission where you're working 100 hours a week, you're trying to get it done, which is what we're trying to get our guys to do because we're on a startup business. I get it. But if you're trying to do it, you're trying to recruit the next person who's going to actually make the decision on your culture because you have scented office space or a yoga room or a sleeping room. I saw a room that had a sleep sack and it was black and it had stars on it, so you can go in there and take your nap and with a little blankie. And I mean that's not to me moving the mission forward.
Yeah. It's work-life balance, which, we talk about work plus life, not work versus life. And, work-life balance implies they're competing. And if I can get away from work, that means I can go do some more personal time. And I do think like the best cultures and the best, companies who kind of strike this the right way say, look, work should be a positive and a great part of your life. And it should be work plus life, not a competing thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're trying to have fun while we're trying to win.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's way more fun when you win than it
Yep.
is having a great environment and losing.
Right. Right.
And, as an investor, as you know, I'm an investor in a ton of startup companies that are right now, they're getting their ass kicked and going under. Those folks are not having any fun. I mean, they're losing. And it's not fun to have the conversations like, hey, we're shutting our doors down. So we have to balance the fact of what we want with the fact that we really need to win too.
Yeah. Remote work, flex hours, all of that's had a huge impact on office. We've just captured some of it here from the mouth of an office broker. But would love to hear anybody's other opinions or perspectives. What are you guys seeing that we're not? Any other markets, we'd be curious to hear. So appreciate the time today and thanks for your knowledge on this topic.
Thank you.